Human boy carried the disabled alien girl to school daily, never knowing her mother owned the galaxy. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The morning sun filtered through the industrial smog of New Portland, casting orange light across the cracked pavement where 12-year-old Ethan Cole waited at the transit stop, his backpack slung over one shoulder and his breath forming small clouds in the cold air. Most kids his age would still be warm in bed, but Ethan had made a promise 6 months ago, and he never broke his promises. The sleek hover transport descended with barely a whisper, its silver hull gleaming despite the grime that coated everything else in the lower districts. The door hissed open, and Ethan stepped inside, nodding to the driver who knew him by now. In the back seat sat Lyra, a Valerian girl with luminescent blue skin that seemed to glow faintly in the dim interior. Her large, dark eyes lit up when she saw him, and despite the mobility harness that kept her frail body upright, her smile was radiant. "Good morning, Ethan," she said, her voice soft and melodic, carrying that slight harmonic quality all Valerians possessed. "Morning, Lyra. Ready for another day of Mr. Patterson's terrible jokes," Ethan replied, climbing into the seat beside her. The hover transport lifted off, heading toward the integrated academy where human and alien children learned together. It was one of the few truly mixed schools in the district, a social experiment that many called foolish, but Ethan's mother had insisted was important. She worked 3 jobs to afford the tuition, believing education was the key to a better future. Lyra shifted slightly in her harness, wincing. Her condition was rare, even among Valerians, a degenerative disorder that affected her skeletal structure and made movement painful. The hover transport could get her to school, but the academy itself was an old building, converted from human only used decades ago. It had stairs, lots of stairs, and the anti-gravity lifts were always broken. 6 months ago, on Lyra's first day, Ethan had watched her struggle on the steps, her face contorted in pain as she tried to drag herself up using the railings. Other students had walked past, some staring, some deliberately looking away. The teachers were in meetings, the staff were busy, and Lyra had been alone. Ethan had approached without thinking, driven by something his mother had always taught him about seeing people, really seeing them, when they needed help. "Can I help you?" he had asked simply. Lyra had looked at him with those enormous dark eyes, surprise written across her features. Most humans avoided close contact with aliens, especially in the lower districts where resentment over resource allocation ran deep. "I need to get to the 3rd floor," she had said quietly, "but I understand if you cannot help. It is not your responsibility." Ethan had knelt down. "Climb on my back. I'll carry you." That first day had been harder than he expected. Lyra was light, her Valerian physiology much less dense than a human's, but 3 floors was still 3 floors. His legs had burned, and he had arrived at class sweating and 10 minutes late. But Lyra had made it to her classroom, and the look of gratitude on her face had made it worth it. The next day, he had been waiting at the transit stop, and the day after that, and every day since. Now, 6 months later, it was routine. The hover transport dropped them at the academy entrance at 7:45 each morning. Ethan would help Lyra out of her harness. She would wrap her thin arms around his neck, and he would carry her up the 3 flights of stairs to the advanced sciences wing where most of their classes were held. At lunch, he would carry her down to the cafeteria. After school, he would carry her back down to the entrance where the hover transport waited. He never complained. He never asked for anything in return, and he never told anyone about it, not even his mother, because it did not feel like something worth mentioning. It was just something that needed doing, so he did it. The hover transport touched down at the academy, and Ethan helped Lyra out of her harness, carefully supporting her as she draped her arms over his shoulders. She weighed almost nothing, her body warm against his back, her breathing soft near his ear. "Thank you, Ethan," she whispered, as she did every morning. "No problem," he replied, as he did every morning. He started up the steps, his pace steady and measured. Other students flowed around them, some nodding to Ethan, others ignoring them entirely. Ethan had gained a certain reputation over the months, though he was unaware of it. The teachers noticed. The other students noticed. Even the administrators noticed. But Ethan was oblivious to the attention, focused only on getting Lyra safely to class. Halfway up the second flight, a group of older boys blocked the stairs. They were members of the Human First Club, a student organization that advocated for human interests and often crossed the line into xenophobia. Their leader, a thick-necked boy named Marcus, sneered as Ethan approached. Making another delivery, Cole, Marcus said, his voice dripping with mockery. You know there are services for that kind of thing. Charity cases have their own transportation. Ethan stopped, his jaw tightening. Move, Marcus. Or what? Marcus stepped closer. You going to fight me while you're playing pack-mule for the alien? Lyra's grip tightened on Ethan's shoulders. Ethan, please. Let us go another way. There is no other way, Ethan said quietly, his eyes locked on Marcus. The other stairs are on the opposite side of the building, and we are not going to be late because of these idiots. Marcus's face reddened. What did you just call me? I called you an idiot, Ethan said calmly. Now move. For a moment, the stairwell was silent except for the distant sounds of students in other hallways. Marcus's friends shifted nervously. They outnumbered Ethan, but there was something in his eyes, a quiet determination that made them hesitate. Finally, Marcus stepped aside with an exaggerated bow. By all means, carry on with your noble charity work. Ethan walked past without another word, his heart pounding, but his steps steady. Behind him, he heard Marcus mutter something crude, but he did not react. Lyra was trembling slightly against his back. You should not antagonize them, she whispered. They could hurt you. They won't. Ethan replied with more confidence than he felt. They're just bullies. Bullies are cowards. They reached the third floor, and Ethan carried Lyra to her first class, setting her gently in her specialized seat near the front. The seat had been modified with support cushions and restraints that helped her maintain an upright position without pain. Thank you, Ethan, she said again, her eyes shimmering slightly. Valerians did not cry the way humans did, but their eyes took on a distinct luminescence when they were emotional. See you at lunch, Ethan replied, and headed to his own classroom 3 doors down. The morning classes passed in their usual blur of algebra, earth history, and basic chemistry. Ethan was a decent student, not brilliant but hardworking, the kind of kid who did his homework on the transit ride home and studied during lunch. He had to be. The scholarship that covered part of his tuition was merit-based, and if his grades slipped, his mother could not afford to keep him at the academy. At lunch, he collected Lyra and carried her down to the cafeteria. They sat together at a table near the windows, an odd pair that drew curious glances, but few outright stares anymore. Most of the student body had gotten used to seeing them together. As they ate, Lyra seemed quieter than usual, picking at her food without much enthusiasm. Valerian cuisine was available in the cafeteria, specially prepared nutrient pastes and crystalline supplements that looked unappetizing to human eyes but were essential for Valerian health. Everything okay? Ethan asked, noticing her distraction. Lyra hesitated, then set down her utensil. I received a message from my family this morning. They are requesting that I return home for a formal gathering. It is mandatory. When? In 3 weeks. I will be gone for approximately 1 week. Ethan felt a strange pang of disappointment, but tried to hide it. That's good, right? You get to see your family. Yes, Lyra said slowly. I have not seen my mother in over a year. She is very busy with her work. What does she do? Ethan realized he had never asked much about Lyra's family. Their friendship existed primarily within the walls of the academy, and he had assumed her family was like most Valerian families on Earth, middle-class merchants or technicians. Lyra's expression became carefully neutral. She works in administrative governance. It requires much travel. That sounds important, Ethan said, not pressing further. He had learned that Valerians were private about family matters, and he respected that. The rest of lunch passed with lighter conversation, and when the bell rang, Ethan carried Lyra back up to class. The afternoon went smoothly until the final period, Advanced Xenobiology, a class where humans and aliens studied each other's biological systems. It was Ethan's favorite class, partly because it was fascinating and partly because he and Lyra were lab partners. Today, however, their teacher, Miss Avery, made an announcement that changed everything. Class, I have exciting news, Miss Avery said, her enthusiasm barely contained. We have been selected to participate in the Interspecies Youth Summit being held next month at the Grand Hall. This is a tremendous honor. Students from across the sector will be presenting research projects on interspecies cooperation and understanding. A murmur of excitement rippled through the classroom. Each pair of lab partners will develop a presentation. Miss Avery continued. The best 3 presentations from our class will be selected to present at the summit. This is an incredible opportunity, and I expect you all to take it seriously. After class, as Ethan carried Lyra down the stairs, she was practically buzzing with excitement despite her physical limitations. This is wonderful, Ethan, she said. We could present our research on comparative immune responses. The data we have collected is significant. Ethan smiled at her enthusiasm. We'll have to work pretty hard to beat out the other teams. Sarah and her partner have been studying neural plasticity differences. That's pretty impressive. We will work harder, Lyra said with determination. We will create the best presentation they have ever seen. Over the following weeks, Ethan and Lyra threw themselves into their project. They spent every lunch period in the library, researching and compiling data. After school, Ethan would stay late, carrying Lyra to the science lab where they would run experiments and analyze results. His mother noticed him coming home later and later, but said nothing, trusting that he was making good decisions. The project was genuinely fascinating. They were comparing how human and Valerian immune systems responded to common pathogens, and their findings suggested that a hybrid treatment approach could be effective for certain diseases that affected both species. It was real science, not just student busy work, and both of them felt the weight of that responsibility. During this time, Ethan learned more about Lyra. She was brilliant, far more intelligent than most of their classmates, with an intuitive grasp of complex systems that left him in awe. But she was also lonely. Her condition made it difficult to form friendships, and most Valerian students kept their distance, uncomfortable with her disability. Humans, meanwhile, were often too xenophobic or too awkward to approach. Ethan was different. He saw her as Lyra, not as the disabled alien girl or the charity case or the other. Just Lyra, his friend and lab partner. One evening, as they worked late in the lab, Lyra asked him a question that caught him off guard. Ethan, why do you help me? She was adjusting her microscope, her movements careful and deliberate. What do you mean? You carry me every day. You spend your free time working with me. You defend me against people like Marcus. Why? Ethan shrugged, uncomfortable with the direct question. Because you need help. And we are friends. But you could be friends with anyone, Lyra persisted. There are many humans who would be easier friendships. Less complicated. Less work. Ethan set down the slide he was examining and looked at her directly. Do you want me to stop? No, Lyra said quickly, her eyes widening. I just want to understand. In Valerian culture, such sustained assistance would imply either a debt obligation or a familial bond. But we have neither. Maybe humans are different, Ethan said. My mom always told me that kindness does not need a reason. You see someone who needs help, you help them. That is it. That is it. That is it. Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Your mother sounds like a wise person. She is, Ethan said with a smile. She works really hard. 3 jobs to keep me in this school. So I try to work hard too, you know? Make it worth it. Lyra studied him with those large, expressive eyes. You are a remarkable human, Ethan Cole. I'm really not, Ethan replied, feeling his cheeks warm. I'm just a kid trying to get through school. As the weeks passed, their presentation took shape. It was comprehensive, well-researched, and included actual experimental data they had collected themselves. Miss Avery reviewed their preliminary work and was effusive in her praise, suggesting only minor adjustments. The day of the class presentations arrived, and Ethan felt genuine nervousness for the first time in months. He and Lyra had worked so hard on this project, and he wanted it to succeed not for himself, but for her. She deserved recognition for her brilliant work. When their turn came, Ethan helped Lyra to the front of the class. He had built a special stand for her, adjustable to her height and with supports that allowed her to present without exhaustion. As they began their presentation, something magical happened. Lyra's nervousness vanished, replaced by confident clarity as she explained their research. Ethan handled the technical demonstrations, and together they formed a seamless team. When they finished, the classroom erupted in applause. Even Miss Avery looked impressed, making notes rapidly on her tablet. Over the next few days, Miss Avery evaluated all the presentations. On Friday, She made her announcement. The 3 teams selected to represent our class at the Interspecies Youth Summit are as follows. 3rd place, Sarah Chun and Vex studying neuroplasticity. 2nd place, Marcus Webb and Kira studying gravitational adaptation. And in 1st place, Ethan Cole and Lyra studying comparative immunology. Ethan felt Lyra's hand grip his arm, her whole body trembling with excitement. They had done it. They were going to the summit. That weekend, Ethan told his mother about the summit. She was working her Saturday shift at the factory when he called, and even through the video screen, he could see her exhaustion. "That is wonderful, honey," she said, her smile genuine despite her tiredness. "I'm so proud of you. You will come to the presentation, right?" Ethan asked. "It is in 3 weeks, on a Saturday afternoon." His mother's face fell slightly. "Ethan, I have my shift at the factory on Saturdays. I cannot miss it. We need the money." "I know," Ethan said quickly, trying to hide his disappointment. "It is okay. I understand. I'm sorry, baby. I really am. But I want to hear all about it when you get home." After he hung up, Ethan sat in his small room, looking at the certificate Miss Avery had given them. He understood. He really did. But part of him had hoped his mother could see him succeed at something important. The following Monday, Lyra was not at the transit stop. Ethan waited for 20 minutes, worry growing in his chest, before the hover transport arrived with only the driver inside. "Miss Lyra is ill today," the driver explained. "She sends her apologies and will contact you soon." For the rest of the week, Lyra was absent. Ethan tried to contact her through the school's communication system, but his messages went unanswered. By Friday, he was genuinely worried. Had her condition worsened? Was she in the hospital? Finally, on Saturday morning, he received a message. It was audio only, Lyra's voice sounding weak but stable. "Ethan, I apologize for my silence. I have been unwell, but I am recovering. There is something I must tell you. My family has requested my presence at home earlier than expected. I will be leaving tomorrow and will not return for 2 weeks. 2 weeks, Ethan's heart sank. But the summit is in 2.5 weeks. You will barely make it back in time. I know. I am sorry. My family's matter is urgent, and I cannot refuse. But I will return in time for the summit. I promise." "Okay," Ethan said, though uncertainty gnawed at him. "Just focus on getting better. I will handle the prep work for the presentation." "Thank you, Ethan. You are a true friend." The message ended, and Ethan was left staring at his communicator, feeling strangely alone. The next 2 weeks were the longest of Ethan's life. Without Lyra at school, the days felt hollow. He ate lunch alone, worked on their presentation alone, and faced Marcus's taunts alone. The other boy had become bolder in Lyra's absence, making crude jokes about Ethan's alien girlfriend and suggesting that she had abandoned him. Ethan ignored him, focusing on perfecting their presentation. He rehearsed both parts, his and Lyra's, wanting to be ready to help her when she returned. 5 days before the summit, Lyra finally came back. Ethan was waiting at the transit stop, as he had been every morning, and when the hover transport arrived and the door opened to reveal Lyra, relief flooded through him. "You are back," he said, climbing in beside her. But something was different. Lyra looked healthier, her skin glowing more brightly than before, but there was a tension in her posture, a guardedness in her eyes. "I am back," she confirmed. "I apologize for the extended absence. Are you okay? What happened?" "It was a family matter," Lyra said, her tone indicating she did not want to elaborate. "But it is resolved now. We should focus on the summit. It is in 5 days." They fell back into their routine, but Ethan could not shake the feeling that something had changed. Lyra was more distant, distracted. During their practice sessions, she would lose her train of thought, staring out the windows as if seeing something far away. On the day before the summit, as Ethan carried her down the stairs after their final practice session, he finally asked, "Lyra, what's wrong? And don't say nothing. I know you well enough to know when something is bothering you." Lyra was quiet for so long that Ethan thought she might not answer. Then, softly, she spoke. "Ethan, have you ever had a secret so large that it felt like it was crushing you?" Ethan navigated the last few steps carefully before responding. "I don't know. Maybe. Why? What if?" Lyra continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if telling that secret would change everything? What if the person you cared about would look at you differently? What if it would ruin the one genuine friendship you have ever had?" Ethan reached the bottom of the stairs and gently set Lyra into her mobility chair. Then he knelt down so they were at eye level. Lyra, whatever it is, it won't change the fact that you are my friend. You know that, right? Lyra's eyes shimmered with unshed emotion. Do I? You say that now, but you do not know what the secret is. Then tell me. Lyra reached out and touched his hand, her fingers cool against his skin. After the summit. I will tell you after the summit. I promise. Ethan wanted to press, but he could see the genuine distress in her eyes. Okay, after the summit. The day of the Interspecies Youth Summit arrived bright and clear. The Grand Hall was an impressive structure in the upper district, all gleaming metal and crystal, designed to accommodate beings of all sizes and environmental needs. Ethan had never been in the upper district before, and the casual wealth on display was staggering. Hovercars instead of public transit, clean streets instead of cracked pavement, buildings that reached toward the sky with architectural confidence. The academy provided transportation for all the presenting students. Ethan helped Lyra into a specialized seat on the shuttle, trying to ignore the nervous flutter in his stomach. This was big. Representatives from a dozen species would be in attendance, along with important officials from the planetary government and the education sector. As they entered the Grand Hall, Ethan's eyes widened. The main auditorium was enormous, with seating arranged in an amphitheater style that allowed everyone a clear view of the central stage. Holographic displays floated through the air, showing information about the various presentations. Security personnel, both human and alien, were everywhere, their presence subtle but unmistakable. This is incredible, Ethan whispered to Lyra as they made their way to the prep area. Lyra nodded, but she seemed tense, her eyes scanning the crowd constantly as if looking for someone. The presentations were scheduled throughout the day, with Ethan and Lyra's slot in the mid-afternoon. They spent the morning watching other presentations, some brilliant, some mediocre, all earnest attempts by young people to bridge the gaps between species. When their turn came, Ethan felt his nervousness transform into focus. He helped Lyra onto the stage, where their presentation materials were already set up. The audience, hundreds of beings of various species, grew quiet. Good afternoon, Lyra began, her voice amplified by the excellent acoustics. My name is Lyra, and this is my partner, Ethan Cole. Today we will present our research on comparative immunological responses and potential hybrid treatment protocols. For the next 30 minutes, they delivered their presentation flawlessly. Ethan handled the demonstrations while Lyra explained the complex science behind their findings. They had practiced so much that they moved as one unit, anticipating each other's needs and transitions. The audience was engaged, several officials making notes, and when they finished, the applause was sustained and genuine. As they left the stage, Ethan felt euphoric. They had done it. All those months of work, all those early mornings and late nights, had paid off. You were amazing, he told Lyra as he helped her back to the prep area. We were amazing, Lyra corrected with a smile. We make an excellent team. The rest of the presentations continued, and as the afternoon wore on, Ethan noticed increased activity among the security personnel. They seemed to be preparing for something, speaking urgently into their communicators and taking up positions throughout the hall. What is going on? Ethan wondered aloud. Lyra shifted uncomfortably. I believe the keynote speaker is about to arrive. Who is it? Before Lyra could answer, the lights in the auditorium dimmed, and a hush fell over the crowd. A voice, deep and resonant, spoke through the sound system. Honored guests, students, and faculty, it is our distinct privilege to welcome our keynote speaker for this year's Interspecies Youth Summit. She has traveled from the far reaches of the sector to be with us today. Please welcome Empress Zara of the Valerian Sovereignty. The auditorium erupted in applause as a figure emerged onto the stage, and Ethan's breath caught in his throat. She was Valerian, tall and regal, her skin glowing with the same luminescence as Lyra's, but somehow more intense, more commanding. She wore flowing robes of silver and blue that seemed to shimmer with their own light, and her presence filled the enormous space with an almost tangible authority. But what made Ethan's mind reel was the resemblance. The shape of her eyes, the curve of her features, the way she moved, it was like watching an older, more powerful version of Lyra. Empress Zara began her speech, talking about the importance of interspecies cooperation, the value of education, and the hope that the younger generation represented. Her voice was captivating, carrying that same harmonic quality as Lyra's, but amplified, resonant. Ethan barely heard a word. His mind was racing, connecting dots he had been too naive to see before. Lyra's family works in administrative governance. Her mother is very busy. The expensive hover transport. The fact that a Valerian girl was attending an integrated academy on Earth instead of the prestigious schools on her homeworld. He turned slowly to look at Lyra, who was sitting perfectly still, her eyes fixed on the stage where her mother, the empress of the entire Valerian sovereignty, addressed the crowd. Lyra, Ethan said quietly, his voice barely audible over the speech. Lyra did not look at him, but he saw her hand trembling where it rested on her chair. Your mother, Ethan continued, the words feeling surreal as he spoke them, is the empress. It was not a question. Lyra finally turned to face him, and her eyes were shimmering with that emotional luminescence. Yes, she whispered. That is the secret I needed to tell you. Ethan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He felt like his entire world had tilted sideways. For 6 months, he had been carrying the daughter of the most powerful being in the Valerian sovereignty up and down the stairs at school. The Valerian sovereignty controlled hundreds of worlds, commanded fleets that could darken entire solar systems, and held economic and military power that dwarfed Earth's by orders of magnitude. And Lyra was the Empress's daughter. Why? Ethan finally managed. Why didn't you tell me? Because of this, Lyra said, gesturing at his shocked expression. Because everyone who knows treats me differently. They see the title, the power, the connection to my mother. They do not see me. But you just saw Lyra. A girl who needed help. A friend. And I could not bear to lose that. On stage, Empress Zara was concluding her speech. And so I encourage all of you to follow the example set by the young people presenting today. They represent the best of what our species can achieve together. Cooperation, understanding, genuine friendship that transcends political boundaries and cultural differences. The applause was thunderous, and as it died down, Empress Zara made an unexpected announcement. Before I depart, I would like to recognize one particular presentation that has come to my attention. The research conducted by Lyra and Ethan Cole on comparative immunology represents exactly the kind of collaborative science we need. Would they please join me on stage? Ethan's stomach dropped. Every eye in the auditorium turned toward them. He looked at Lyra in panic. We have to go, Lyra said quietly. I am sorry, Ethan. Ethan helped Lyra from her seat, his hands moving automatically through the familiar motions while his mind spun. He pushed her chair toward the stage, aware of hundreds of beings watching every step. Security personnel created a path for them, and as they reached the stage, Ethan had to lift Lyra from her chair to help her up the steps. He had carried her hundreds of times, but never in front of an audience of this magnitude, never under the direct gaze of the Empress of the Valerian sovereignty. As they reached the center of the stage, Empress Zara turned toward them, and Ethan got his first close look at the most powerful being in the sector. Her eyes were kind but ancient, holding depths of experience and authority that made him feel impossibly small. Your research is impressive, young scholars, Empress Zara said, her voice warm but formal. Tell me, how did you come to work together on this project? Lyra spoke first, her voice steady despite the tremor Ethan could feel running through her body. We are lab partners at the Academy, Your Majesty. Ethan has been my partner for many months. I see. Empress Zara's eyes shifted to Ethan, and he felt the weight of her attention like a physical force. And you, young human, what motivated you to undertake such complex research? Ethan's mouth was dry, but he forced himself to speak. We wanted to do something meaningful, Your Majesty, something that could actually help people, both humans and Valerians. Commendable, Empress Zara said. Then, surprising everyone, she asked, how do you travel to school each day, Lyra? The question seemed simple, but Ethan sensed layers beneath it. Lyra hesitated, then answered truthfully. Ethan carries me, Mother. A ripple of surprise moved through the audience. The revelation that Lyra was the Empress's daughter spread like wildfire through the crowd. But Empress Zara showed no reaction, merely nodding thoughtfully. Every day? Every day, Lyra confirmed. Empress Zara looked at Ethan again, and this time her expression was different, softer, more personal. You carry my daughter up and down stairs every day. Why? Ethan felt the absurdity of the situation crash over him. He was being questioned by an empress in front of hundreds of people about why he helped his friend. But as he looked into those ancient, knowing eyes, he realized she was not asking as an empress. She was asking as a mother. Because she needs help, Ethan said simply. And because she is my friend. The auditorium was utterly silent. Empress Zara studied him for a long moment, then did something unexpected. She smiled, a genuine expression of warmth that transformed her entire face. My daughter has told me much about you in her messages home, Ethan Cole. She said you were kind, intelligent, and steadfast. She did not mention you were also remarkably brave. I'm not brave, Ethan protested. I mean, anyone would. No, Empress Zara said firmly. Not anyone. In fact, very few would. You see, Ethan Cole, I sent my daughter to Earth specifically to attend that academy, knowing it lacked proper accommodations for her condition. I did this to see how she would be treated, to understand how genuine interspecies cooperation functions at the most fundamental level. Ethan felt cold realization wash over him. It was a test. Not for you, Empress Zara said, as if reading his thoughts. For humanity. For Earth. I needed to know if my daughter, vulnerable and in need, would be met with kindness or cruelty. Whether humans could see beyond species and status to simple compassion. And Ethan Cole, you have answered that question more thoroughly than any treaty or diplomatic summit ever could. For 6 months, you have shown my daughter genuine friendship, asking nothing in return, expecting no reward. You defended her against bullies. You spent your free time helping her succeed. You treated the daughter of an empress as simply Lyra, your friend. She turned to address the entire auditorium. This is what we must all strive for. Not grand gestures or political maneuvering, but simple, genuine compassion. Seeing each other as individuals worthy of dignity and assistance, regardless of species or status. The applause that followed was overwhelming. But Ethan barely heard it. He was looking at Lyra, whose eyes were streaming with luminescent tears. I am sorry I did not tell you, she whispered. Ethan shook his head. I get it. I really do. After the summit concluded, Ethan and Lyra were escorted to a private reception area where Empress Zara was meeting with select guests. Security personnel, elegant and professional, created a bubble of privacy around the Empress. Ethan felt desperately out of place among the dignitaries and officials, acutely aware of his worn shoes and second-hand formal clothes. But when Empress Zara saw them enter, she excused herself from her current conversation and approached. Ethan Cole, she said, and there was genuine warmth in her voice. I would speak with you privately, if you are willing. Ethan glanced at Lyra, who nodded encouragement, then followed the Empress to a quieter corner of the room. You must have questions, Empress Zara said. So many, Ethan admitted. But mostly, I am just trying to understand. You are the Empress of the Valerian sovereignty. Why would you risk your daughter like this? What if people had been cruel to her? Empress Zara's expression grew sad. People have been cruel to her, Ethan. Her condition makes her different, even among our own people. On our homeworld, she was isolated, pitted, treated as fragile. Here, in a place where her status meant nothing, I hoped she might find genuine connection. And she found it in a 12-year-old human boy carrying her upstairs, Ethan said, the absurdity making him laugh despite himself. Indeed, Empress Zara smiled. Life is strange that way. Tell me, your mother works 3 jobs to keep you in that academy, correct? Ethan nodded, wondering how the Empress knew that. I mean, yes. She works really hard. I would like to meet her. She works Saturday shifts, Ethan said. At the factory. She could not even come to the summit because she cannot afford to miss work. Empress Zara's expression became thoughtful. What if I told you that I wish to reward you for your kindness to my daughter? What would you ask for? Ethan's mind raced. He could ask for anything. Money, status, technology. The Empress of the Valerian sovereignty was offering him a reward, and the possibilities were staggering. But as he thought about it, only one thing really mattered. I would ask that you make sure Lyra can stay at the academy, that she can keep coming to school, because she is my friend, and I don't want that to change. Empress Zara's eyes shimmered with the same emotional luminescence as her daughter's. That is all. That is all. The Empress was quiet for a long moment. You are a remarkable young human, Ethan Cole. Very well. I will ensure Lyra can complete her education at the academy. But I insist on doing more. Your mother's burden will be lifted. I will personally ensure your tuition is covered, and she will not need to work 3 jobs anymore. Ethan's eyes widened. Your Majesty, that is too much. It is not nearly enough, Empress Zara said firmly. You have given my daughter something precious. The gift of genuine friendship, of being seen as a person rather than a title. That is beyond price. Over the following weeks, Ethan's life changed in ways both large and small. The news that he had been carrying the Empress's daughter to school spread rapidly, and he became something of a celebrity. News organizations wanted interviews. Other students who had previously ignored him suddenly wanted to be his friend. Even Marcus and his human-first cronies kept their distance, subdued by the reality of Ethan's connection to galactic power. But the most significant change was his mother. Empress Zara had been true to her word. Not only was Ethan's tuition completely covered, but his mother received an offer for a position at a Valerian-owned technology firm, a single job that paid more than her 3 previous jobs combined and included full benefits. Ethan came home one day to find his mother crying at the kitchen table, a contract in front of her. Baby, she said, pulling him into a tight hug. Do you know what you have done? Do you understand? I just helped a friend, Mom, Ethan said, his voice muffled against her shoulder. You did so much more than that, his mother whispered. You showed them who we are, who humans can be. But amidst all the changes, one thing remained constant. Every morning, Ethan waited at the transit stop. Every morning, the hover transport arrived with Lyra inside. And every morning, he carried her up 3 flights of stairs to her classroom. The school administration offered to install working anti-gravity lifts. They offered to move Lyra's classes to the ground floor. They offered a dozen different accommodations that would make Ethan's daily routine unnecessary. He declined them all, because it was never about necessity. It was about friendship, about showing up for someone who needed you, about keeping a promise. 3 months after the summit, on a cold morning much like the one when their friendship had begun, Ethan and Lyra sat together in their usual spot during lunch. The cafeteria buzzed with the normal chaos of students, but in their corner by the window, they existed in their own bubble of quiet conversation. Do you ever regret it? Lyra asked suddenly. Regret that I did not tell you who I was from the beginning? Ethan considered the question carefully. Sometimes I wonder how I would have reacted if I had known. Maybe I would have been too intimidated to approach you that first day. Maybe I would have been like everyone else, seeing the title instead of the person. And now? Now I know you are both, Ethan said. You are Lyra, my friend and lab partner. And you are also the daughter of an empress. Both things are true, and both things are part of who you are. I am glad I got to know the first part before the second, though. Lyra smiled, that radiant expression that had first captured Ethan's attention. I am glad too. Their friendship continued and deepened throughout the rest of the school year. They won several awards for their immunology research, which was actually being reviewed by real scientists for potential development. They presented at 2 more conferences. And through it all, Ethan continued his daily routine, carrying Lyra up and down stairs, studying together, defending each other against the occasional student who could not see past their differences. But the story was not over. Near the end of the school year, Empress Zara returned to Earth for a state visit. This time, however, she requested a private dinner with Ethan and his mother. They met at a restaurant in the Upper District, a place so elegant that Ethan felt uncomfortable just walking through the door. But Empress Zara greeted them warmly, and Lyra was there too, which helped ease his nervousness. Over dinner, the Empress spoke with Ethan's mother about her new job, about Ethan's progress at school, about the friendship between their children. It was surreal, watching his mother converse with the most powerful being in the sector over soup and bread. As the meal concluded, Empress Zara grew serious. Ethan, I have a proposal for you and your mother to consider. In 2 years, when you complete your basic education, I would like to offer you a full scholarship to the Royal Academy on Valeria Prime. It is the most prestigious institution in the sovereignty, and graduates go on to positions of significant influence. Ethan felt his mother's hand grip his under the table. Your Majesty, Ethan said carefully, that is an incredible honor. But why? Because the galaxy needs more people like you, Empress Zara said simply. People who see others as individuals, who act with compassion without expecting reward, who build bridges instead of walls. I cannot force you to accept, and this offer will remain open regardless of your decision. But I believe you have the potential to shape the future of interspecies relations in profound ways. Ethan looked at his mother, whose eyes were shining with tears. He looked at Lyra, who was watching him with an expression of hope and anticipation. Can I think about it? He asked. Of course, Empress Zara said. Take all the time you need. That night, Ethan lay in bed, staring at the ceiling of his small room. The Royal Academy on Valeria Prime. It was the kind of opportunity people dreamed about, the kind of chance that could change his entire life trajectory. But it would mean leaving Earth, leaving his mother, leaving the familiar, struggling lower districts that had shaped him. His communicator chimed softly. A message from Lyra. Are you awake? He responded quickly. Yeah, thinking. About the academy? About everything. There was a pause, then another message. I will be attending the Royal Academy in 2 years as well. My mother insists I complete my education there, now that my condition has stabilized. Ethan smiled in the darkness. So we would be classmates again, if you accept. But Ethan, you should decide based on what you want, not because of me. This is your future. What do you want? Ethan typed. The response took a while to arrive. I want my friend with me, but I want you to be happy more. Ethan thought about carrying Lyra upstairs every morning, about their late nights in the lab, about the strange, unlikely friendship that had formed between a struggling human boy and the daughter of an empress. I need to talk to my mom, he typed back. The conversation with his mother happened the next morning over breakfast. I want you to know, his mother said before he could speak, that I will support whatever you decide. This is your life, your choice. But what do you think I should do? Ethan asked. His mother smiled, that tired but warm smile he knew so well. I think you should grab this opportunity with both hands. Do you know why I worked so hard? Why I took those 3 jobs? Why I pushed to get you into that academy? Because you want me to have opportunities you did not have. Exactly. And now you have an opportunity beyond anything I could have imagined. The Royal Academy, baby. Do you understand what that means? It means leaving you, Ethan said quietly. It means growing, his mother corrected. It means becoming the person you are meant to be. And Earth is not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. You can come home for visits. We can communicate. But you cannot let fear of leaving hold you back from something extraordinary. Ethan felt tears prick his eyes. What if I fail? What if I am not smart enough, not good enough? His mother reached across the table and took his hand. Ethan Cole, you carried a girl up and down stairs every single day for 6 months without being asked, without expecting anything in return. You befriended someone when everyone else ignored her. You did the right thing when it was hard and when no one was watching. That is the kind of person you are. You will not fail. 3 days later, Ethan sent his acceptance to Empress Zara. He would attend the Royal Academy in 2 years. The news spread quickly through the academy, and reactions were mixed. Some students were excited for him. Others were jealous. Marcus made a crude comment about humans selling out to aliens, but by now, Ethan had learned to tune out that kind of noise. What mattered was Lyra's reaction. When he told her during their lunch period, her whole face lit up with joy. We will be together, she said, gripping his hands. We will continue our research. We will continue learning. We will continue being friends, Ethan added. Always, Lyra promised. The remaining 2 years at the academy passed quickly. Ethan and Lyra continued their pattern, though as Lyra's medical treatments improved her condition somewhat, she gained a bit more mobility. But Ethan still carried her when needed, and the sight of the human boy and the Valerian girl together became an enduring symbol of interspecies friendship at the academy. They continued their research, expanding it to include other species and publishing papers that drew attention from the scientific community. They presented at conferences across the sector, always as a team, always supporting each other. Ethan's mother thrived in her new position, and the small apartment they had shared gave way to a modest but comfortable home in a better district. But she never forgot where they came from, and she instilled in Ethan a deep understanding that privilege came with responsibility. When graduation day arrived, Ethan stood on stage accepting his diploma with honors. Lyra sat in the front row, her mobility now aided by advanced Valerian technology, but still limited. When his name was called, she cheered louder than anyone, her voice carrying that harmonic quality that had become so familiar and dear to him. Empress Zara attended the graduation, causing a security frenzy, but also bringing immense prestige to the academy. In her brief remarks, she spoke about the importance of education in building bridges between species, and she specifically mentioned Ethan and Lyra as exemplars of what could be achieved when young people approached each other with open hearts. After the ceremony, as families gathered for photos and celebrations, Ethan found himself standing with Lyra, his mother, and Empress Zara in an unlikely group. 2 years ago, Empress Zara said, "I watched a young human boy carry my daughter upstairs without hesitation. Today, I watched that same boy prepare to leave his homeworld and venture into the stars. The galaxy is better for having people like you in it, Ethan Cole." "I just did what anyone should do," Ethan said, feeling his cheeks warm. "But you did it when others did not," Empress Zara replied. "That is the difference between should and is. Between ideology and action." The summer before leaving for the Royal Academy was bittersweet. Ethan spent time with his mother, memorizing the details of home that he had always taken for granted. He spent time with the few human friends he had made, knowing those relationships would change with distance. And he spent time with Lyra, their friendship deepening as they prepared for the next chapter of their lives. One evening, sitting on a rooftop overlooking the city as the sun set over the industrial district, Lyra asked him a question. "Do you ever wonder how different your life would be if you had not stopped to help me that first day?" Ethan considered it. "Sometimes. I mean, I would probably still be at the academy, still working hard. But I would not have you as a friend. I would not have learned about Valerian culture. I definitely would not be going to the Royal Academy. Do you regret how your life has changed?" Ethan shook his head firmly. "Not even a little. Yeah, things got complicated. And sometimes the attention is weird. But I gained something more valuable than any of that. I gained a true friend." Lyra's eyes shimmered. "You gave me something valuable too, Ethan. You gave me hope. Before I came to Earth, I felt like my condition defined me, like I was nothing more than a burden, a problem to be managed. But you showed me that I could be valued for who I am, not pitted for what I lack." "You were never a burden," Ethan said firmly. "I know that now. Because of you." They sat in comfortable silence as the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky. Two young people on the edge of an extraordinary adventure, bound together by a friendship that had started with a simple act of kindness. The day of departure arrived with typical Earth weather, overcast and cool. A Valerian transport ship waited at the spaceport, sleek and beautiful, ready to carry them to Valeria Prime. Ethan's mother insisted on accompanying him to the spaceport, though tears streamed down her face the entire journey. At the boarding gate, she pulled him into a fierce hug. "You make me so proud," she whispered. "Every single day, you make me proud. Now go show the galaxy what humans are capable of." "I love you, Mom," Ethan said, his own tears flowing freely. "I love you too, baby. So much." Lyra waited respectfully while Ethan said goodbye to his mother, then approached them both. "I promised to look after him," Lyra said to Ethan's mother. "He has looked after me for so long. It is my turn now." Ethan's mother smiled through her tears. "Look after each other, both of you." As they boarded the transport, Ethan looked back one last time at Earth, at his mother waving from the observation deck, at the planet that had shaped him. He felt a complex mixture of excitement and fear, hope and homesickness. But as the transport lifted off and Earth fell away below them, Lyra's hand found his. "Ready for the next adventure?" she asked. Ethan squeezed her hand, looking out at the stars that awaited them. "Ready." The Royal Academy on Valeria Prime was overwhelming. The campus sprawled across a crystalline landscape, buildings that seemed to grow from the ground itself, technology so advanced it appeared like magic. Students from dozens of species moved through elegant corridors, and everywhere Ethan looked, he saw wonders that defied his limited Earth experience. But amidst the overwhelming newness, some things remained familiar. Lyra was with him, her presence a constant anchor. And when they arrived at their assigned housing, Ethan discovered his quarters were specifically designed to be accessible, with human-compatible environmental controls and furnishings. The first weeks were challenging. The academic standards were brutally high, and Ethan found himself struggling to keep up with students who had received far more advanced education than Earth could provide. He spent long nights studying, pushing himself harder than ever before. But Lyra was there, helping him navigate unfamiliar subjects, translating concepts that did not easily cross species barriers. And gradually, Ethan found his footing. His unique perspective, shaped by his Earth upbringing and his compassionate nature, became an asset rather than a liability. Their immunology research continued and expanded, now with access to resources they could only have dreamed of at the Academy on Earth. They published their first major paper in a prestigious scientific journal, and it drew significant attention for its novel approach to cross-species medicine. More importantly, Ethan and Lyra became ambassadors of sorts, demonstrating through their genuine friendship what interspecies cooperation could look like. Other students, watching how naturally they worked together, began to question their own prejudices and assumptions. 1 year into their time at the Royal Academy, during a major symposium on interspecies relations, Ethan was asked to give a keynote address. Standing before an auditorium filled with some of the sector's most influential academics and politicians, he spoke from the heart. "I am just a human from Earth," he began. "I did not grow up with advanced technology or prestigious education. I grew up in a district where people struggled every day just to survive. But I learned something valuable there that no amount of technology or prestige can teach. I learned that when you see someone who needs help, you help them. You do not calculate the cost or the benefit. You do not worry about what species they are or what status they hold. You simply help." 2.5 years ago, I saw a girl struggling on some stairs. She was in pain, and she was alone. So I offered to carry her. That simple decision changed my entire life. It brought me here, to this academy, to this moment. But more importantly, it gave me a friendship that has enriched my life beyond measure. We talk a lot about interspecies cooperation at an institutional level, treaties and trade agreements and military alliances. And those things are important. But real cooperation, real understanding, starts with individual choices. With one person deciding to see another person's dignity and worth, regardless of what species they are. I carried Lyra upstairs every day, not because I expected anything in return, but because it was the right thing to do. And in doing so, I learned that the barriers between species are not as insurmountable as we think. When we approach each other with compassion and genuine curiosity, when we value each other as individuals rather than representatives of our species, we can build bridges that technology alone cannot create. The applause was thunderous, and as Ethan left the stage, he saw Empress Zara in the front row, tears streaming down her face, pride written in every line of her expression. After the symposium, the Empress invited Ethan and Lyra to a private dinner at the royal residence. It was a place of breathtaking beauty, gardens that seemed to exist in perpetual twilight, architecture that defied conventional physics. Over dinner, Empress Zara made an announcement that stunned them both. "Ethan Cole, I would like to offer you a position in my administration after you complete your studies. I am creating a new department focused on interspecies cultural exchange and understanding, and I can think of no one better suited to lead it than you." Ethan nearly choked on his drink. "Your Majesty, I am honored, but I am not qualified. I am just a student." "You are far more than that," Empress Zara said firmly. "You are someone who understands, at a fundamental level, what it means to bridge divides. You are someone who acts with compassion without requiring compensation. These qualities cannot be taught, Ethan. They can only be embodied. And you embody them." "She is right," Lyra added quietly. "You have already changed how so many people think about interspecies relations. Imagine what you could do with institutional support." Ethan looked between them, feeling the weight of the offer, but also feeling something else. Possibility. Hope. A chance to make a real difference on a galactic scale. "Can I think about it?" he asked. "Of course," Empress Zara smiled. "Take your time. The position will be waiting when you are ready." Over the next 2 years, as Ethan and Lyra completed their studies at the Royal Academy, that offer remained open. Ethan threw himself into his work, not just his scientific research with Lyra, but also into understanding the complex web of relationships between the sector's various species. He learned about historical conflicts and current tensions. He studied diplomatic protocols and cultural taboos. He began to understand the enormity of what Empress Zara was offering him, the responsibility and the opportunity. But through it all, one thing remained constant. Every day, in small ways, he continued to help Lyra, sometimes carrying her when her condition flared up, sometimes simply being present when she needed a friend. Their bond, forged in those early morning stares back on Earth, remained unshakable. Graduation from the Royal Academy was an even grander affair than their Earth Academy graduation. Empress Zara herself presented diplomas to the graduating class, and when she called Ethan's name, the entire auditorium rose in a standing ovation. "Ethan Cole," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast space. "You came to us as a human boy from Earth's lower districts. You leave us as a scholar, a scientist, and a bridge builder. The Valerian sovereignty is honored to have educated you, and we are eager to see what you will accomplish in the years ahead." As Ethan accepted his diploma, he looked out at the audience and saw his mother in the front row. She had traveled all the way from Earth for this moment, and her face was radiant with pride. After the ceremony, in the gardens outside the auditorium, Ethan stood with his mother, Lyra, and Empress Zara. "So," Empress Zara said, "have you made your decision about the position I offered?" Ethan took a deep breath. "I have, and I would be honored to accept if the offer still stands." "It absolutely stands." Empress Zara's smile was brilliant. "Welcome to the Sovereignty's diplomatic corps, Ethan Cole." His mother hugged him tightly. "I am so proud of you," she whispered. Later that evening, Ethan and Lyra stood together on a balcony overlooking the capital city of Valeria Prime. The city glowed with bioluminescent architecture, creating a landscape of living light that took Ethan's breath away. "Thank you," Lyra said suddenly. "For what?" "For everything. For seeing me when others did not. For being my friend when I needed one. For changing my life and so many others." Ethan shook his head. "You changed my life just as much. More, probably. I went from a kid who could barely afford school to someone with a position in the Empress's administration. That is all because of you." "No," Lyra said firmly. "It is because of who you are. I simply provided the opportunity for others to see what I saw from the beginning. Your kindness, your compassion, your strength." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the city lights dance. "What happens now?" Ethan asked. "Now we change the galaxy," Lyra said with a smile. "Together, as we always have." And they did. Over the following years, Ethan's Department of Interspecies Cultural Exchange became one of the most influential bodies in the sovereignty. He implemented programs that brought together young people from different species, fostering the kind of genuine friendships that had changed his own life. He advocated for accessibility improvements across sovereignty space, ensuring that beings with disabilities could fully participate in society. He worked tirelessly to break down barriers and build bridges. Lyra worked alongside him. Her scientific research now focused on medical treatments that could help beings across species boundaries. Together, they published groundbreaking work that saved countless lives. Their friendship, which had begun with a simple act of carrying someone upstairs, became legendary. Stories were told about the human boy and the Empress's daughter, about how genuine compassion could transcend species and status. Children across the sovereignty grew up hearing their story, learning that kindness was never wasted, that helping others was always worthwhile. Ethan never forgot his roots. He regularly visited Earth, working to improve conditions in the lower districts where he had grown up. He established scholarships for promising students who could not afford quality education. He made sure that the bridges he was building reached all the way down to those who needed them most. His mother, now retired and comfortable, often accompanied him on these visits. She would watch him work with young people from the districts, seeing himself reflected in their struggles and dreams, and her heart would swell with pride. Years later, at a major interspecies summit, Empress Zara was asked about the success of her cultural exchange programs. Her answer was simple. "The secret," she said, "is not complex policy or elaborate programs. The secret is found in individuals who choose compassion over indifference, who see others as worthy of dignity and respect regardless of species or status." My daughter found such an individual in a human boy who simply offered to help when help was needed. That single act of kindness has rippled outward, touching millions of lives across the sector. We do not need grand gestures to change the galaxy. We need more people willing to carry someone up the stairs. In the audience, Ethan sat beside Lyra, their friendship now decades old, still strong, still genuine. They exchanged a smile, remembering that cold morning on Earth when everything had begun. Ethan had been just a 12-year-old boy who saw someone struggling and offered to help. He had not known he was helping the daughter of an empress. He had not known it would change his life. He had not known it would ultimately help reshape interspecies relations across the galaxy. He had simply done the right thing. And in the end, that had made all the difference. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.